Every year, archaeologists uncover discoveries that should change what we know about human history. Some do. They make the journals, the headlines, the museum exhibits, and some disappear. Not into the ground, not due to funding cuts or academic indifference. They disappear into institutions, into storage vaults, into silence enforced by the very organizations we trust to preserve the past. What you're about to see is not a list of theories. It is a documented record of discoveries, real artifacts, real sites, real findings that were found, recorded, and then buried. Not by accident, but because what they showed didn't fit the story we were being told. The question is not whether this happens. The paper trail proves that it does. The question is, what were they hiding?
Chapter 1. The most documented case of institutional suppression in American archaeology. The Smithsonian Institution was founded in 1846. It is the world's largest museum and research complex. It holds approximately 155 million objects in its collections. And for more than a century, critics, including credentialed archaeologists, have accused it of something extraordinary: systematically destroying evidence of giant human remains found across North America. This is not a fringe claim built on internet rumor. It is documented in the historical record. Between approximately 1850 and 1920, hundreds of newspaper articles, from publications including the New York Times, reported the discovery of skeletal remains significantly larger than standard human proportions. Heights described ranged from 7 to over 9 feet. Remains were found in burial mounds, caves, and excavation sites across at least 30 states. The Smithsonian's Bureau of Ethnology, which coordinated many of these early excavations, received these finds. And then the finds stopped appearing in the literature.
In 2004, a Supreme Court case, Kennewick Man versus United States, brought the issue of suppressed skeletal remains back into the spotlight. Kennewick Man, a 9,000-year-old skeleton discovered in Washington state in 1996, had facial features that did not match the expected profile of Native American ancestry. The Army Corps of Engineers, acting on federal law, attempted to turn the remains over for reburial, effectively ending scientific study. Researchers fought the case for nearly a decade. The fight over Kennewick Man was not about one skeleton. It was about precedent, about who controls what gets studied, what gets preserved, and what gets erased from the archaeological record. Multiple researchers who have attempted to access Smithsonian storage records related to pre-1920 mound excavations have reported encountering cataloging irregularities, objects logged as received with no corresponding storage location, artifacts entered into the record that cannot now be found. Lost? Misfiled? Or removed? In 2014, a satirical news site published a fabricated story claiming a Smithsonian whistleblower had confirmed deliberate destruction of giant skeletons. The story went viral. It was false. But its viral spread revealed something real. Millions of people already suspected that the institution had not been fully transparent about what was found in those mounds. Suspicion built on a century of newspaper reports, a century of documented finds, and a century of institutional silence. The Smithsonian has never issued a comprehensive accounting of all skeletal remains received from 19th century mound excavations. That accounting has never been requested by Congress, and the mainstream archaeological community has never formally investigated why the giant skeleton report stopped. When institutions control both what is found and what is published, absence of evidence is not the same thing as evidence of absence.
Chapter 2. 3 artifacts, 3 impossible technology. One conclusion mainstream science refuses to draw. Some ancient discoveries are not suppressed by institutions. They are suppressed by assumption. The assumption that ancient people could not have possessed sophisticated technical knowledge, that advanced technology is a modern achievement, that the arrow of human capability only points forward. These three artifacts make that assumption very difficult to maintain. The Baghdad Battery, circa 250 BCE. In 1938, German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig was working in the basement of the Iraq Museum in Baghdad when he came across a clay jar roughly 14 centimeters tall. Inside it, a copper cylinder, soldered with a tin-lead alloy, surrounding an iron rod, insulated at the top with asphalt. He recognized it immediately. It was the configuration of a galvanic cell, an electrochemical battery. Dating placed it at approximately 250 BCE, nearly 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta invented the battery in 1800. When replicas were built and filled with electrolyte solutions, grape juice, vinegar, lemon juice, they produced between 1.5 and 2 volts of electric current. Exactly what you would need for basic electroplating, the process of depositing a thin layer of metal onto another surface.
And here is where the discovery became inconvenient. Because throughout the ancient Near East, archaeologists have found extraordinarily thin gold plating on copper artifacts, plating so thin and uniform that modern analysts have struggled to explain how it was achieved with mechanical methods alone. If electroplating was available in 250 BCE, if the Baghdad Battery was not a single anomaly but part of a broader technology, then the history of electrical knowledge needs to be rewritten by roughly 2,000 years. The mainstream position. The Baghdad Battery is probably a scroll storage vessel, whose electrical function is coincidental. Possibly. But no one has found any scrolls stored in this particular configuration, and the electroplating argument has never been definitively refuted. The Antikythera Mechanism, circa 100 BCE. In 1901, sponge divers off the Greek island of Antikythera recovered a heavily corroded lump of bronze from a 2,000-year-old shipwreck. It sat in a museum, largely unexamined, for decades. When researchers finally looked closely, and when X-ray and CT scanning technology allowed them to see inside, what they found was staggering. The Antikythera Mechanism is a hand-cranked mechanical computer. It contains at least 37 interlocking bronze gears of extraordinary precision, designed to calculate and display the positions of the sun and moon, predict solar and lunar eclipses on a 19-year metonic cycle, track the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games, and model the movements of at least 5 planets. It is, by any engineering definition, a programmable analog computer, built in approximately 100 BCE. Roughly 1,500 years before any comparable mechanism appears in the European historical record.
The device was not primitive. Its gears have tooth profiles that match modern involute gear geometry. Its eclipse prediction algorithm was accurate enough to be used today. Inscriptions on its surfaces describe its functions in language suggesting it was built for an educated user, not a specialist, but someone who would know what to do with it. Which means it was not unique. It was a product. Mass production implies a manufacturing tradition. A manufacturing tradition implies knowledge that was developed, refined, and taught across generations. That knowledge is gone. Every trace of the tradition that produced the Antikythera mechanism disappeared from the historical record. We have one surviving example, recovered by accident from the ocean floor. If the ship had sunk in deeper water, we would not know this technology ever existed.
How many other ships are still down there? The Dendera reliefs, circa 50 BCE. In the crypts of the Hathor Temple at Dendera, Egypt, built during the Ptolemaic period around 50 BCE, there is a series of carved stone reliefs that have divided researchers for over 50 years. They depict what appear to be large, elongated glass bulbs. Inside each bulb, a serpent or lotus, interpreted by some researchers as a filament. Each bulb rests on what appears to be an insulating pillar and is connected to what looks like a cable running to a separate box. Austrian electrical engineer Walter Garn and his colleague Franz Lohner built a scaled replica based on the carving dimensions.
When constructed as an electric lamp using period-available materials and powered by a Baghdad Battery-type cell, the device produced a faint but visible glow.
The standard archaeological explanation. The Dendera reliefs are symbolic religious imagery. The serpent represents the primordial lotus of creation. The pillar is a jed pillar, a symbol of stability. The overall image is mythological, not technical. That may be entirely correct. But it is notable that the mainstream explanation requires us to accept that a highly precise, physically accurate representation of an object that functions as an electric lamp is purely coincidental, and that the same temple complex contains other carvings that Egyptologists have struggled to explain, including what appear to be helicopters, submarines, and aircraft carved into the ceiling of a corridor, now widely interpreted as the result of stone reuse and overlapping hieroglyphics. Coincidence is always possible, but at some point, the accumulation of coincidences becomes a pattern, and patterns deserve investigation, not dismissal.
Chapter 3. Medieval maps that show coastlines which shouldn't have been known for centuries, including an ice-free Antarctica. The maps that broke the timeline. In 1513, Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis compiled a world map. He documented his sources, approximately 20 older charts and 8 Ptolemaic maps, some of which he described as being from the time of Alexander the Great. The map survived, and when modern cartographers studied it in the 20th century, they found something that should not be possible. The Piri Reis map accurately depicts the coastline of South America, including the Amazon basin, at a time when Europeans had only just begun exploring the eastern edge. It shows the correct longitudinal relationship between Africa and South America, a problem that was not solved by European navigation until the late 18th century, when accurate marine chronometers were invented. And along the bottom of the map, there is a coastline that runs east to west, below South America, that corresponds with extraordinary accuracy to the subglacial topography of Antarctica.
Antarctica was not officially discovered until 1820. The continent's coastline beneath the ice was not mapped until the International Geophysical Year surveys of 1958. The Piri Reis map was drawn in 1513. In 1960, Charles Hapgood, a cartographer at Keene State College in New Hampshire, sent a detailed analysis of the Piri Reis map to the United States Air Force Cartographic Unit at Westover Air Force Base. The unit's chief cartographer, Harold Z. Ohlmeyer, wrote back confirming that the map's southern coastline did indeed appear to correspond to the Antarctic terrain beneath the ice, and that no known European source from 1513 could account for that data. The letter exists. It is in the historical record. It was written by the chief cartographer of a United States Air Force base, not by a conspiracy theorist. Hapgood's conclusion? The Piri Reis map was compiled from source charts that predated not only European exploration, but the glaciation of Antarctica itself. Source charts drawn when the Antarctic coastline was ice-free, and therefore accessible and chartable.
Antarctica has been ice-covered for approximately 34 million years. There is, however, geological evidence of a warming period approximately 11,000 years ago, during the same younger dryas transition period we discussed in our previous documentary, when portions of the Antarctic coast may have been seasonally accessible. The Piri Reis map is not alone. The Orientaeus Venus map of 1531 also shows Antarctica, with mountain ranges, river systems, and a detailed interior that matches subglacial topography. The Buchel map of 1737 shows Antarctica divided into 2 landmasses, a detail that wasn't scientifically confirmed until seismic surveys in the 1950s revealed that the continent is indeed split by a subglacial sea. 3 independent maps, 3 different cartographers, all showing a continent that wasn't supposed to be known, with details that weren't supposed to be possible. Hapgood spent 30 years trying to get mainstream academia to formally investigate these maps. He was largely ignored. He died in 1982, struck by a car on an icy road in New Hampshire. His work has never been formally refuted. It has simply never been formally engaged.
Chapter 4/Why Suppression Happens and What It Protects.
Before we conclude, I want to address something directly. Not every suppressed discovery is the result of a shadowy institution deliberately hiding the truth. The reality of how archaeological suppression works is both more mundane and, in some ways, more troubling than a coordinated cover-up. Academia runs on consensus. Careers are built on peer review. Grants are awarded by committees. And committees are composed of people who have spent their professional lives building the consensus that already exists. When a discovery challenges that consensus, when a finding suggests that the timeline is wrong, that an artifact is out of place, that a technology existed before it was supposed to, the system does not conspire to destroy it. It does something quieter. It simply does not fund the follow-up research. It does not publish the paper. It does not invite the researcher to the conference. And then, over time, the finding simply stops being discussed. Not because it was refuted, because it was starved of oxygen.
This is what happened to the work of archaeologist Virginia Steen McKinty, who in 1966 co-led a dig at Hueyatlaco, Mexico, that uncovered stone tools at a stratigraphic level dating to approximately 250,000 years ago. The tools were sophisticated, bifacial and projectile point technology, and they were embedded in layers that 4 independent dating methods confirmed were at least 250,000 years old. According to the accepted timeline, modern humans did not arrive in the Americas until approximately 16,000 years ago. Tools of this sophistication were not being made by anyone on Earth 250,000 years ago, according to the consensus. Steen McKinty submitted her findings for publication. She was told the dates must be wrong. She submitted alternative analyses. She was told her methodology was flawed. Her career stalled. The site was not returned to for further investigation for over a decade. When other researchers finally re-examined it, they confirmed the original dating.
Steen McKinley later wrote, "The problem as I see it is this. Homo sapiens is much older than we think. And the suppression of this information is not coming from some sinister, shadowy cabal. It is coming from the very human tendency of scientists to protect what they believe to be true. That distinction matters, because it means the solution is not uncovering a conspiracy. The solution is demanding that institutions do what they claim to exist to do. Follow the evidence. All of it, even the inconvenient parts. The Baghdad Battery, the Antikythera Mechanism, the Piri-Reis map, the giant skeletons, the Hueyatlaco tools, none of these have been definitively explained within the standard model. They have been dismissed, shelved, or ignored, and the standard model has continued unchanged. But the evidence does not go away because the institution looks away. It waits.
Every discovery you saw in this documentary is real. Every institution named is real. Every paper trail exists, and links are in the description below. History is not a finished document. It is an ongoing argument between what we found and what we decided to believe. And right now, the evidence is asking us to reconsider. If this made you question what you were taught, that's not a bad thing. That's the beginning of knowing something real. Subscribe to Beyond Explained. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't watched our documentary on the pre-flood civilization, it's linked right here. Because what was suppressed connects directly to what was lost. I'll see you in the next one.